Hello my fellow collectors, I hope you're all doing really well and thank you for clicking on the video. In my last video essay or discussion if you will, I picked on Indicator quite a fair bit. Well, in this video today I'm going to be talking about and picking on Eureka. I'd like to take just a few minutes today to talk about this boutique distributor, which is definitely one that I love, but I think that it has a few flaws that I'd like to discuss. I think many have dubbed them the British Criterion, specifically for their Masses of Cinema collection, in which they release wonderful movies from classics to art house to world cinema. They do fantastic transfers, restorations and offer comprehensive extras. In addition, they have their Eureka Classics collection, which releases a wider range of films, and in particular recently with a Chinese focus, which has been really wonderful to see. And lastly, they have Montage Pictures, which is kind of like a sub-brand for them, within which they focus on new world cinema titles. Now, Eureka as a distributor I think are pretty excellent in general. There are so many of their releases that I love, though I don't have anywhere near the number that I'd like to. For me, it was around 2 years ago that I picked up my first titles from them, namely Repo Man and Lifeboat. Two fantastic films that gave me the desire to pick up many more. Their releases come with great artwork, colourful and lovely looking spines that look great together, and they spine number their releases as well, which as a collector I very much enjoy. It was through Eureka in particular that I got more into film noir as a genre, with titles such as Double Indemnity and Laura, though they have a great selection of many more, and so they have that extra special place in my heart because film noir has become one of my favourite genres. So, if I think they're pretty great, what flaws am I talking about? Well, first up, and really the main gripe that I have, is the large number of titles that have gone OOP, out of print. One thing that I applaud from Criterion is the longevity of their licenses to release the films. While of course with a catalogue of over 1,100 now, there are a good few that are out of print with them, however it's a surprisingly small number considering the large size of Criterion's catalogue. After a recent pickup of 4 titles from Eureka, I was just taking a look at my collection and I noticed that out of the first 100 spines, I have only 11 of them. Now, I'm not a completionist by any means. There are just too many films that I don't enjoy, or don't think that I'll enjoy, or have little interest in. And honestly, I'm not massively into horror as a genre, and so I've never really felt the need to try to collect an entire collection of releases. But there are a lot of Eureka's catalogue that I find I do have a large interest in. I remember when I was first purchasing a few titles and noticing and being excited by the fact that they had computer chess in their catalogue, only to then discover it was no longer available, and only going for extortionate amounts on eBay. So, in my desire to focus a bit more on collecting Eureka titles, I started looking at whether I can just get maybe the first 10 spines, as that would be nice to own, nice to see where they began, with the Blu-rays anyway, and 10 titles is something that I can complete without too much trouble and it'd be a fun, fairly short journey to get to. However, the answer is no, you can't, with 5 of them being out of print. This got me looking further into how many of Eureka's releases are actually out of print, and it was a disturbingly high number. For a company that has just over 260 titles, there are just so many that are simply not available anymore, and as a collector that really made me disappointed, as there are a lot of absolutely stellar films that they previously released which have had the Eureka treatment that I would absolutely jump on if I had the chance. Films like Computer Chess, Boomerang or Cleopatra to name just a few. In total, out of the first 100 spines, 50 of them, half of them are out of print. Half! I'll just let that hang there for a second to sink in because I feel like that's an outrageous number. Now, thankfully as we get over spine 100 and right up to I believe it's now spine 261, there are only another 6 titles that I believe are out of print. But as a total, that's 21.5% of their entire collection not available, and to put it another way, just over 1 out of every 5 you can't buy anymore. So while I might not be a completionist, even for people like me, I like to have the option, or the journey if you will, of trying to collect a large majority of a company's releases, particularly a company like Eureka, which do not have so many titles that is out of the realms of possibility, like with Criterion for example. Of course, titles being unavailable doesn't take away from the titles that still are, and all the effort and quality being put into them. However, it's still disappointing that the scale of titles no longer available is so large. The next flaw I'd like to highlight from Eureka is the lack of sales and the limit of sales when they do have one. I think it's safe to say that Arrow, Indicator and Criterion all have excellent sales during which many of us purchase our titles. There are, of course, a number of releases that we'll pick up straight away or in the course of our cinema journey discover that we are desperate to see, and so we'll get them at the time and happily pay full price. But I think lots of us wait or certainly indulge when there is a sale on. I know that I definitely pick up titles that I would never pay full price for. Ones that perhaps I'm not overly interested in, but I may have heard good things, or perhaps they look vaguely interesting, or they have a good director or actors attached. And so you grab it because there's a sale on, and why not? It's not that big a financial risk. I think Eureka hurt themselves by not following a similar pattern as the other great boutique labels that we have. When Eureka do have a sale on, it's usually just a handful of titles. For example, they currently have a sale on specifically on Buster Keaton titles, and they have 4 releases available in that sale. Lots of their sales events are similar, such as the Kung Fu sale at Christmas, or perhaps a sale relating to a specific director. Since I've been collecting, I've never seen a wider sale with a larger number of their titles. Now, as a quick note, I will say that I do think some of Eureka titles are in general fairly well priced, particularly from third-party sellers like Zavvi, for example, where they can be found around £12 or £13. Though more recently, pushing to well over £15 and north of £20 for some of their new releases, with just a slipcover, I do think is a bit too much. But I will say that I never feel in a rush to get them, and when I do, I never usually pick up very many titles at once. I know that back in years past, Eureka titles could be got for as little as around £6, making them outrageously great purchases. And I'm not suggesting that they go back to that, as prices have increased for everything. But I do think that if they did sales, for example, perhaps something like a 2 for £18 on a majority of their standard release catalogue, perhaps, then they would get a lot more people purchasing them, get a lot more interest. Of course, it's different in the UK, but in the US I know Criterion have 2 month-long sales a year with 2 24-hour flash sales. People know about it, have time to save up and be prepared for it. Over here, I believe Arrow has 2 large sales a year as well, and I know we'll get a 2 for £25 on Criterion roughly twice a year. Indicator, with their recent sale at the end of last year, did their international delivery free on orders over £200, and I think a large number of people took advantage of that. And though I believe Eureka have now introduced a shipping charge to some other countries, it is free on the UK mainland. And I think even if they offered something similar to that deal by Indicator, a lot of people would take advantage of it. I think I'd just love to see Eureka expand, get more publicity and grow as a brand. I think a great way to do that is through these big sales events that people are aware of, that they can save up for and pick up a chunk of titles at the same time, where they can watch them in a row and really get an idea of what Eureka are about, enjoy a few releases together. In my opinion, I would say that Eureka is superior to the likes of Arrow Academy, for example, in terms of extras, booklets and supplements. But with the sales that Arrow have done, I own a lot more Arrow titles than I do Eureka. The same goes for Criterion. Even though they're more expensive to buy, I own a lot more of them simply due to the fact of taking advantage of sales. I'd love to see more from Eureka to promote interest and get us collectors buying more from them. Now the last flaw from them will just be a quick one, as I covered it fairly comprehensively in my last talkie video regarding limited editions, and so if you're interested in my thoughts surrounding the proliferation of limited editions in the boutique space, please do check that video out. But Eureka have not been immune to this increase, and so I thought I'd address it briefly here. So far I only own 2 of their limited edition releases, that being Showa and The African Queen, both presented in lovely sturdy cardboard slip boxes. The African Queen having some gorgeous artwork and even reversible artwork inside the case, which was unexpected but a welcome surprise. The thesis of that previous video will be pretty much the same point that I make here, namely, why aren't these standard editions for these titles? The African Queen is a stone-cold classic, with 2 of the finest actors of their generation. A title worthy of a special release, but why make it limited? If need be, they could release the special edition and a standard edition together, so that people can choose or budget appropriately. But I can't see the need for making this wonderful packaging and all the effort that goes into one of these special releases limited, as all it seems to do is encourage scalpers. I was recently talking with someone about High Noon, which Eureka have released, and which up until very recently was a film I didn't own and hadn't seen. After talking with them, I was really interested in picking it up. It sounded fantastic, and I saw that Eureka had released a similar edition to The African Queen for High Noon, a great looking sturdy cardboard slip box, etc. But I saw that it was now sold out. There was just a standard edition available. So without delving too much into making the same points again, I'll just say that for me personally, after the excitement of wanting to watch this film, I think I would have bought the special edition straight away if it had been available, to have something really nice to appreciate this film more. But as it wasn't available, I didn't pick it up, and I didn't feel in a rush to pick it up either. In fact, the only reason that I own it now is because I was generously bought the standard edition for Christmas. Take from that what you will, but I don't think I would be alone in that sort of thinking. So, to conclude, overall I think Eureka is a great distributor that does some excellent work, but one for me has a lot of room to improve and grow if they were to make some changes, which I would love to see. I think it would be great to see them get the licenses back for a number of their out-of-print catalogue, so that we could see the return of some wonderful titles, and I'd love to see better sales events from them that offer a larger portion of their catalogue all at once, where collectors can really get stuck in. But that sums up my thoughts on the company. I'd love to hear what you think about them as well. Do they barely register on your radar, or are they one of your absolute favourites? Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next one.